Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us for this pre-application conference for our 25-27 Youth Community Investment Grant. We are happy to have you all with us. As a reminder, some people are still trickling in, but if you enter, please make sure that you are muted throughout this presentation. And next slide, please. So just wanted to acknowledge the staff that are with us today. We're not going to introduce ourselves all at this moment, but we will be taking different sections of this presentation and we'll all introduce ourselves at that point. My name is Jared Shaw. I'm a grant manager with YDO, and also just wanted to acknowledge the fabulous staff that we have working behind the scenes to monitor the chat and the Q&A. We'll go into some of that housekeeping in a moment on where to put your questions. Please also be aware that statements and responses to questions addressed during the presentation are considered non-binding until published in the official question and answer document, and that will be published around June 16th. Please refer to the published RFA and any addendum for official RFA information, and those can be found at that link on our website at the bottom of this screen. Next slide, please. All right, many of you know that we have a single point of contact overseeing this RFA, and I'm going to turn that over to Bethany Moreland to introduce herself.
Hi, good morning. I'm Bethany Moreland. I work for ODE Procurement, and as Jared mentioned, I'm the single point of contact for this RFA. Just a reminder that if you have any questions beyond this period of time that we're in the informational session, that you do follow the formatting that is listed in the RFA and email those to me specifically. Please do not call me. I can't take any questions regarding the RFA over the phone. So just a friendly reminder to please do follow the format requirements listed in the RFA.
All right, thank you, Bethany. Next slide, please. So this is just a session overview. This is what we'll be covering today. We'll be going over a few brief housekeeping things in the next slide. We will go over our agency and an overview of the grant. We will cover the scope of this RFA, go into application and evaluation, how to apply, and then finish up with the RFA timeline. Next slide, please. All right, again, as a reminder, please make sure that you are muted during this presentation. If you have any questions related to the grant, to this RFA, we are using a new feature this time. We are using the Q&A function. So that can be found on the bottom of your screen where you see all the different icons. If you have your screen in, if it's open fully, there should be a Q&A icon. It looks like a little square speech bubble with a question mark in it. If you don't see that, hit the More icon with the three dots, and that Q&A feature should come up. If you have any problems finding that, you can put that question in the chat, but we are asking that you use the Q&A function rather than the chat to submit all of your questions related to the RFA this time. And that's because we have a couple hundred people registered for this pre-application conference. So we want to make sure that we're collecting your questions as efficiently as possible, and monitoring the chat in that way can get a little messy. So again, please submit all RFA related questions in that Q&A. If you have any logistical questions, such as, where do I find a recording of this presentation, that you can put in the chat. But if you have any RFA related questions, please make sure that's in the Q&A. Questions will be monitored. Please be aware that, again, due to the number of people on this call, we probably will not be able to answer all of your questions today in real time. It's just not feasible for us with this number of participants. So again, that's why it's so important that you put those questions in the Q&A feature. We will be collecting those, and we will be addressing those in the official Q&A document that will be published as part of this RFA around June 16th. You also have until June 9th. If you look in the RFA, there is a schedule timeline. So you can continue to submit questions after this period up until June 9th. And June 16th, we will be publishing that official document. Again, statements and responses to questions during this presentation are non-binding until published in that official question and answer document. Please also, as we're going through the presentation, we'll be going through different sections. And please hold your questions until the end of a section to ask it, because it might be answered in that section, and that will just limit the number of questions that our staff are fielding behind the scenes. All right. Next slide, please. So this is the YDO mission and vision. Many of you are probably familiar with this mission, vision, and equity statement. We don't need to go through all of this right now, but please do take a look at this and think about as you're working on your application how your organization aligns with our mission and vision and equity statement. Next slide, please. So this is our youth grants portfolio for the 2025-27 biennium. So we are talking about the Community Investments Grant this time. This primarily serves youth ages 6 through 19 with positive youth development programming. Two of the other applications that you see on the left, the Re-engagement Opportunity Grant and the Job and Work Readiness Grant, those are both open at this point as well. The Re-engagement Opportunity Grant serves youth 14 through 24 with reconnection to education, and the Job and Work Readiness Grant serves youth 16 through 24 primarily, and with that focus on connecting youth to workforce and career training. We will also be having another RFA, the Youth Violence and Gang Reduction grant that used to be called the Youth Violence and Gang Prevention for those who are familiar with it. That will primarily serve ages 16 through 24 through specific violence and gang reduction programming. And that will be released upcoming. We'll have more information on that in the fall. So that is, we've got three, the re-engagement, job and work readiness, and the community investment RFAs that are open now. And that violence and gang reduction one will open up at some point later in the fall. Next slide, please. So this is the general purpose of the Youth Community Investment Grant. And starting on this slide, you will notice that many of the slides in the bottom right corner have the RFA section that corresponds to the slide. So to find the purpose in the RFA or to find the section that corresponds to any of the information on these slides, please look in that bottom right corner and take a look at those sections in the RFA and the attachments associated with them. So the youth community investment grants are intended to primarily serve youth ages 6 through 19 at risk of disengaging from school or engaging in unhealthy and negative behaviors that may lead to criminal activity and or physical and mental harm. The efforts funded through this grant are intended to be responsive to and affirming for all youth and address various barriers to educational success. Now, the primary age range for this grant is intended to be 6 through 19 years. And so we're calling this primary age range. That's really the age that we would like you to focus on in your applications for this grant. And that is because we have two other grants right now, the Re-engagement Opportunity and the Job and Work Readiness, that are really intended to serve many of those older youth up through 24. If you are awarded a community investment grant and you want to serve over age 19, there is some room there where you can talk to your grant manager and we can work through that. But really the purpose of this grant, we would like the intention to be serving those school age youth, age 6 through 19. All right, next slide, please. In section 2.3.2 of the RFA, you will see the overarching goals of the community investment grant, and these are very broad. So it's really to increase youth engagement in and connection to school and community, enhance academic achievement and support educational attainment, reduce barriers and support access to services that improve youth educational outcomes. Next slide, please. Increase youth participation in safe and welcoming out of school time programming and services with positive adult role models, and provide services to youth in a manner that supports educational success, reduces high-risk behaviors, improves well-being, and is integrated, measurable, and accountable. So these grants can support a variety of different types of programming that overall are supporting youth in staying engaged in their education opportunities. Please also be aware that the community investment grants are intended to be funded through federal dollars if available and are subject to additional federal requirements. And those are listed again in section 2.3.2 and also attachment A, which is the sample grant agreement that will lay out some of those requirements as well. Next slide, please. Youth grants application limits. So this is new this biennium. There is a limit to the number of applications that an organization can apply for. So for the community investment grant, that is a limit of 2 applications. You'll also see 1 application in the Re-engagement Opportunity Grant and 1 application in Job and Work Readiness. And each application must provide 1 program in 1 location or different programs in 1 location or the same programming for youth in different geographic service areas. So really that means please make sure in your applications, if you're submitting more than one application, if you're submitting those two, we need to know how the services are separate and distinct. So, for instance, if you're working in one school with two different programs, we want to see that the programming is different if the same youth are being served, or if you're doing the same program, that it's happening in different locations, but just making sure that there's a clear distinction between those grants and that funds are going to different purposes or populations. Next slide, please. All right, continuing with the award limits. This is also new this biennium. So you'll see the terms operational project and individual level participant data. And those are key terms that will help you determine how much you're eligible to apply for and where. So these are defined terms in the RFA. Please take a look at that definition section for operational project and individual level participant data. Operational project essentially means that if a YDD staff member were to show up at your programming right now, we would see that that program is happening, that it is operational, it has been continuously operational. This is not startup programming. This is not something that you're looking to start with these funds. This is continuous programming that you have been maintaining. So if you are conducting an operational project and collecting individual level participant data, and you are new to YDO, you may receive up to $200,000 per award. If you are a returning grantee and you're collecting operational or you're collecting individual level participant data and you have an operational project, you're eligible for up to $300,000 if you were previously awarded in this RFA type. So that means that if you had a community investment grant either last biennium or in the 21-23 biennium, then you're eligible for up to $300,000. And specifically, those community investment grants would be the Youth Promise Grant and the Youth Solutions Grant for the purposes of this RFA. So it's a little confusing there, but if you see in the bottom right corner, attachment I is a list of returning grantees per award type. So for this award, this RFA, if you look at attachment I, that will tell you if you were funded with one of these grants in the 21-23 or 23-25 biennium. If you have not had this award type before and you are conducting an operational project collecting individual level participant data, you're eligible for up to $200,000. So let's say, for instance, you had a re-engagement grant, but not a community investment grant, then you'll be eligible for up to $200,000. Whether you are a returning grantee or a new grantee, if you're conducting new programming, startup, seasonal programs, and or system level work, or other programming that does not collect individual level participant data, you may receive up to a $150,000 award. And each applicant is also limited to a total of $600,000 in total awards across the community investment, re-engagement, and job and work readiness grants. Okay, so please take a look at section 1.2 for those details and attachment I for that list to determine whether you're considered a returning grantee for this grant. All right, next slide, please. All right, and I think now I'm turning it over to Abraham to talk more about the scope of this RFA.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. I'm Abraham Magana. I'm a grant manager and operations analyst with YDO. So I'll be covering the RFA scope. So next slide, please. Applicant eligibility. So this kind of tells you who's eligible to apply for our grants. Federally recognized tribes in Oregon, nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations, public benefit companies, mutual benefit companies, Oregon community colleges, ESDs, public school districts, schools, public schools, counties, cities, or county or city governmental entities. The only thing I want to mention, as it says there below, is the services have to be delivered to youth living in Oregon. An example is we may have an organization that perhaps, let's say, is in Vancouver, right? Just over the river, but they have a branch or uh, another location in the Portland area. Well, that's fine, right? The organization may be, headquartered in Washington, but services are primarily serving them in a specific location in Portland. So that's fine. That's what that means. So that is possible. For more information, you can go ahead and look at section 1.3 in the RFA. Next slide. Scope of activities. We're going to be covering this in the next few slides, and specifically to what these exactly mean. For example, academic enrichment and support, out-of-school activities and positive youth development, barrier removal and case management, mentoring, conflict resolution, youth work and post-secondary exploration, mental health and wellness support, and essential schools for youth success. Here, like I said in the incoming slides, the next slides, we'll be covering exactly what that means. But before we go into that, I'm going to cover one of our definitions. Next slide. Youth furthest from opportunity. Yeah, there's a lot on this slide. I'm not going to read it. But what I want to do is kind of say is a lot of these definitions that we have are sometimes labels how the youth are labeled sometimes. I'm not saying it's one of these things, right? What you will see in some of this is that there might be overlap with the youth you serve. Along with that, other things that kind of when we talk about youth furthest from opportunity is also life circumstances for these youth as well, right? I think that's something else that also plays into this. For example, you may have a youth who's doing great for a while, and then life happens, and now they now need of additional supports. And that's what we mean by youth furthest from opportunity. They need additional support, resource, whatever it may be, access to something. But that's oftentimes, you know, the youth that may not always be the warmest, fuzzy youth, but that's who we want to serve. Next slide. Now, academic enrichment and support. Some of you are familiar with, so this may look like an after-school tutoring program, right? It may be something specific where someone needs additional help studying for a specific type of test, maybe ACT, SAT. That's really what we mean by academic enrichment and support. It can, like I mentioned before, it's any sort of that guidance around academia specifically, right? Out of school activities and positive youth development. These are really just pro-social type activities, whether that be athletics, art programs, cultural enrichment, going to a museum, really getting youth exposed, right? But in a positive, safe environment with trusting adults is what we mean by that. Next, burial removal and case management. This right here is really having someone build that relationship with the youth, figure out what challenges they and or their family may have, right? This may involve speaking with the family, but trying to address those obstacles and trying to remove those barriers. You may want to have someone who wants to play, again, I'll use sports, but they just can't pay the fee. Well, this is what we're talking about, right? If this gives time for a youth to be out there for an hour, mom can do something else, right? During that hour, that's helping everybody, right? It's just a simple example. Mentoring and conflict resolution. Again, having a caring role model, an adult who actually knows them, right? Who gets to know them, uh, and is just real. Above that, again, and I've said this before, it's about the relationship, right? You don't have someone that builds a relationship with a youth, you're not really helping the youth. So this is what the mentoring and the conflict resolution, right, is really learning how to work through those problems, right? And you'll notice that some of these scope of activities, they overlap. And we're not saying you have to do all of these, but you have to do choose some of these within the context of your organization and the services you deliver. Next slide. Youth work and post-secondary exploration. So this is really about exposing youth. This isn't employment, right? That's the job work readiness one. This is about having youth be exposed to what's it mean to have a job or what kind of careers are there, right? Visiting a community college or a college campus, right? Entrepreneurship. I'm not saying start a business or a successful business. What's it take to have a business, right? What do you have? So this is really what this is about when we're talking about post-secondary exploration and youth work. It's not about employment, but everything it takes to get to that next level, to get a job, right? Now, this is a big one, mental health and wellness support. And I'll be a little bit specific about what we mean by mental health in this context. This is actually meeting with a counselor and or a therapist, right? Having that one-on-one and or group family therapy, right? That's kind of what we're looking at. I understand, right? The wellness support plays into it as well, right? But I know just wanted to be clear about what we mean for YDO around mental health. And you'll see that in some of our definitions, as you see there in section 2.4. Next slide. Essential skills for youth success. So this is really, we talk about this kind of with our colleagues, but learning how to adult, right? In quotation marks, right? Things that we've learned, these soft skills that we use in our day-to-day work and in our personal lives, right? These that time management, how to conduct yourself when you're under stress, right? How to talk to somebody who you disagree with, right? And those are just kind of simple things. That's kind of what this essential skills for youth success is. It's those non-tangible things that sometimes that we as adults just do on the daily that youth have not yet experienced or know about, right? And again, like I mentioned before, a lot of these services, there's additional definitions in attachment J. Next slide. Reporting requirements. So what we have here is, I'm going to go one by one. Quarterly narrative report. This is you telling us pretty much within a 3-month period what took place, what services, right? What did you do during those 3 months? Um, what were the successes? What were the challenges? Is there anything that you learned? Anything promising practices? And you also have the option during the narrative reporting to provide us with anything you want us to know that we didn't ask you. Oftentimes, we may have grantees upload like a newsletter, for example. Quarterly expenditure reporting, that is basically your budget, what you spend during those 3-month periods. Data report, I'll get into that a little bit more when we get into what's expected of that, but oftentimes it's just your basic demographic information along with if they stayed in school, what grade are they in? And then we have an annual data report. And an annual data report really is the first year, right, of reporting, which would be in your first year, it's a quarter report. So your 4 quarterly reporting, right, all put together would be your annual data report. That's not something, usually your quarter 4 report is your annual data report because it's cumulative. Kind of, like I said, a little bit about the data report. We are asking individual level participant information, and that usually captures kind of when they first entered the program and when they are no longer being served by the program. And just to kind of give you a little more detail, for our purposes, so when our grant first starts, first day of the grant period would be, and if you were already serving youth the day before and you're still serving them when the grant period started, that would be your first uh, intake date. Exit would be that when they left or when your cohort, if you have a cohort model, ended. Next slide. So here's kind of what we're asking for when it comes to your data reporting. Their first and last name, legal, their date of birth, youth demographics, and their race ethnicity. And there's more information on attachment F. Now, this is specifically for the first 2 funding options, right? The third funding option is not necessary. If you cannot provide this information, we do provide the option for that through that third funding option where this is not a requirement. Next slide. This is application evaluation. I think, is this you, Jared?
I think it might still be you.
Oh, okay, it's still me. Application evaluation. All right, next slide. So there is part of the application where you will see here that is unscored. So the applicant information is your basic information that you fill in. Who's the point of contact, executive director, grant manager, the title of your grant, a small summary, a little bit of description of your organization and the community you're serving, as well as your budget, and then who you're going to be partnering as well with. Next slide. There's a partnership. So we require 2 to 4 letters of partnership. Now, these are submitted through SM Apply, the platform we're using. And the partnerships have to kind of align with who you identify as your partners in SMA. Um, the process, and I'll go through the process a little later and what it looks like in SMA, but each letter is used for specifically the letter of support requirement. All the contact information listed in the application must match the letter of partnership submitted by the letter writer for the letter requirement to be met. It must be done through the SM Apply portal. And The applicant's responsible for explaining the RFA letter requirements to the letter writer, define the service area to the letter writer, describe the project, and explain the reason for the letter prior to sending the request via SM apply to the letter writer. Next section. Site and or subcontractor letters are required. The location is dependent. Sorry about that. Location is dependent on the site management partner. The letter must clearly state the agreement is active and expected to remain active through the grant period. And if your subcontract or subaward is of 25,000 or more, the letter must describe the contracted services. So something to keep in mind when you're requesting those letters of support. Next slide. Here's kind of what your budget's going to look like. The subcontracts or the subawards that exceed 10,000 over the duration of the grant must be listed. And see attachment D for an example of what the project budget looks like. But this is kind of what our categories are in our admin and indirect. Know that we do have, like I said, in that example attachment, we do give a definition of what these categories are. Next slide. Evaluation items. Now, these are the areas that are scored in our grant RFA. Evaluation item, project implementation, your capacity, right? These are your capacity to deliver the services that you said you're going to deliver. Who you're serving, right? Project youth population and where you're serving them. And the actual services and activities, right? We have some questions about project equity and access. And then also around community partnerships and support, right? You see the word limits there and an idea of what the points for each evaluation item. Next slide. So something to keep in mind also, your responses should clearly describe what you will do and or the youth to be served. You should answer all the items and all sub-items. You may see them as bullets. And then demonstrate a firm commitment to what you will undertake if awarded this grant. Next slide. Regional assignment. So here.
Dave, this is where I take over.
Okay, I was gonna say, wait a minute. I think someone else takes this. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone for attending. My name is Bill Hansel. I'm a grant manager and data lead with YDO. Regional or the grant awarding process actually unfolds in two steps. And regional assignment is important because the first step of the awarding process is based on your region. All submitted applications will be assigned a region based on the established business address. Now, a term called primary service location is used. If your primary service location, which is defined as where the majority of your youth are served, is outside of the region that your business address is established, you may request to change region to your primary service location. And this is done within the SMA application itself that will be submitted. So an important note, your primary service location in relationship to the awarding process is relevant only if it differs from your primary, from your business address. So if you serve youth in a range of places within a single region, it's not so important as which one of those is your primary service location if your business address is in that same location or same region, excuse me. Next slide, please. As stated before, the ranking of the applicants happens in a two-step process based on region and score. So there are 11 regions, and the highest ranking score within each of those regions will be awarded a grant. Um, in step two, priority points are assigned. At this point, the regions go away. It's statewide. And the priority points are assigned based on a calculation that's specified in the RFA. Um, those priority points are added to the score, and then applications are ranked from highest to the lowest, and awards are made based on your score and rank until funds run out. Um, More information on the priority points. Priority points will be added to federally recognized tribal applications in step two and are basically 1.05 times the score. And that calculation, the priority point is then added to the score and ranking follows that. So that is the how regional assignments are made, and then the relationship to grant awards in a two-step process, regional and then statewide. Next slide, please. Sorry, I already covered this slide, but next point. Thank you.
All right, I'm back. So I'm going to be covering basically how you apply using SMA or SM apply, as we've been saying.
Hey Abe, this is
Okay.
Cord.
Mhm.
Can I pause you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been trying to send messages in the chat just to let the next person, who I don't know who the next person is, obviously, know. We just wanted to quickly acknowledge, particularly for folks who might not have heard this earlier on, that we see questions coming in the chat. This being an info session, we're going to be providing a lot of information in the slides. You may have some verbal responses to some of the questions, particularly if they're easy ones for us to answer later on. But there are a lot of questions in here that we will not be able to answer today, but we're capturing all the questions, and the questions will have responses in the Q&A document being published later. So we see more and more questions coming, but particularly for folks, I'm wondering why we're not answering questions. I wanted to just chime in and offer that bit of information. So we appreciate questions. We want them. We will be capturing them. We'll be responding, though not necessarily in the course of today's meeting. And I'll pass it back to you, Abe. Thank you.
Thank you, Cord. Next slide, please. So SM Apply Application Portal, that's the platform that we'll primarily use for you to submit your grant application. We refer to it sometimes as SMA, SM Apply. And there's a link there that's a primary link into Access, the platform. And then we also have a resource page on our website and frequently asked questions that can also be accessed. If you have any trouble, that's kind of the first place you may want to go to figure out, wait, what did I do, or why is this not working? After you go through that, then your best bet is to send an email and contact the SPC. Next slide. So you'll see something like this when you go to that website. It won't be as warped, but that from there is kind of where you start off if you don't already have an account. I know some of you are returning. You may already have an account. You can log right in if you've been awarded in the past. But if you've never applied, you'll have to register, and it's really just as simple as clicking on that green button. It'll ask you for your name and an email and then a password. Set up. Next slide. Again, once you've actually formally set up your account and began to apply for the grant, you'll see a little rectangle, right? And each rectangle represents your grant application and or program is the way it's called in SMA, but it represents your grant application. It really is just clicking on that start button, and then you'll come and see on the next screen a few some tasks associated with your grant application. Next slide. And these are the tasks I'm talking about. So all these tasks have to be complete for you to be able to submit your grant application. They have to be, it's best if you do it in order. Now, you do have the option of jumping around a little bit in your tasks. I understand that, right? But do know specifically around the partnership requirement, you do have to do task three before you can do a task three continued, where you see a little thumb there. It's a little small. but that's the only requirement. But other than that, you can go around. But I, it may be best to do it in order, just so you make sure you get everything completed and don't realize, oh wait, I forgot to do a task, right, when you're trying to submit it. Another thing to also know is there's the ability to save as you go into a task. You scroll down, there's a little green button to save and continue editing. Once you do that, you can exit, do whatever you need to do, come back, and everything you've submitted or put in the fields, answers in the form will be saved. Every time you complete a task, there's a little green check mark that comes up, right? So that's how you know you've completed a task. So right now you see little circles next to the task numbers. There'll be a green check mark there. If you're still working on a task or the task is incomplete, you'll see kind of like the circle be halfway filled out in green. If you haven't started, it'll be blank like these are right now. You can edit them at any given time, right? Or I'm sorry, your answers and the tasks, right? But you can only do that if you don't submit it, obviously. And the thing that is really neat about this is it will not allow you to submit until all the tasks have been completed, right? And you'll know you've been completed all the tasks because that submit button that you see there in gray, that'll turn green. So pretty much anytime you see a green check mark or a green button, a green submit button, that means you can submit it. Next slide. So here's a part in regards to letters of partnership or request. And in SM Apply, it'll come across as a request or recommendation, but you do it all through here. And what you're really doing is asking somebody to fill out, we say letter of partnership, but the letter's already kind of the questions in the letter. We're asking them to fill out a form. Um, It's an important thing to remember. All contact information listed in SM Apply application must match the letter of partnership submitted by the letter writer for the requirement to be met. And the applicant must initiate sending the letter through the SM Apply portal. Letters must be completed and submitted as part of the RFA. Um, Something that also, it's always good to give your person you're sending the letter to a heads up. It gives you the opportunity in SM Apply. There's a little field where you write the name of the person, their last name, their email, right? And then there's a field that says where you can write in additional information to let that person know that, hey, I'm sending you this and it's about this or that, or you can just give them a call, whatever's easier on your end. Next slide. Again, I kind of said this earlier, the green submit button, that's the key thing to submitting your grant application. The person who starts the application, so let me back a little bit. You have an option to add a collaborator to help you write the grant application, but the collaborator cannot submit the grant application. It's a person who initiated, who, if you look on the left there where it says Molly test, Burns test, the owner is the only person who can actually submit the grant application, right? Not only that, after you hit the submit button, you'll get an email confirmation that you successfully submitted your grant application, right? If you don't get something within an hour, please reach out to the SPC. Next slide. I think it's back to you, Jared, right?
I think you're right. All right, thank you. So I'll just be going over the schedule for this RFA. Next slide, please. So this is also in section 1.4 of the RFA, but goes through some important dates that you need to pay attention to. Had pre-application conference, obviously, today. Questions and requests for clarification. So you still have an open window to submit questions. Again, please submit them via email to Bethany Moreland, the SPC, by June 9th at 4 p.m. Answers to those questions will be published in the official question and answer document around June 16th. If you want to change your region, so if you want to apply in a region other than where you are located, you need to submit that petition to do that by close of RFA. Again, please read the RFA for how to do that. Closing of this RFA is July 8th at 4 p.m. Pacific time, and issuance of the notice of intent to award will go out approximately September 5th. And then there'll be 7 calendar days after that of an appeal protest period. So that is the schedule for this RFA. Next slide, please. And just a big thanks to everybody for joining. Again, please take a look at the YDO website linked here. for this information on this RFA and our Gov Delivery email system. If you are not on our listserv, you can sign up there to receive notification and updates on the RFAs. These are the current RFAs listed on the left that are open. And again, questions to Bethany Moreland, single point of contact. And before we close out, I'll just ask any of the folks monitoring chat and Q&A, is there anything that we um, need to address right now?
Hi, Jared. This is Cord. I've kind of been scrolling through, and I think one question that has possibly been answered already, but I'll just mention it because it's asked a couple of times, is this is 2-year funding. So the award limits, the program period would be for 2 years. Um, and there are a lot of very specific questions in those, particularly we're going to want to provide the answers and follow up. Just, there's a lot of detail here. And let's see, their minimum amount, there is a minimum request amount, and that is in the RFA. Questions about, what level to apply at, things of that nature. Again, those are things that we'll have to provide responses to in the Q&A that will be the answers will be published coming up. I don't know if anyone has the date handy for when we plan to publish that. I think Jared, you may have just shown it, but if someone wants to mention that again, that we'll be getting those questions answered and out published, similar to the other RFAs.
June 16th.
Yep.
June 16th. Thank you.
Approximately, according to the RFA.
Let's see. I think those are the ones that I can just sort of answer very quickly. There's, let's see, a lot of great questions. So I really appreciate that. We appreciate folks putting stuff in there. And again, we're going to capture all of these and we'll provide those responses. Oh, I do see a question here about matching funds that just came in. There is not a required match for this funding. Yeah, the rest of these, I think we'll want to take more time and give more attention to them, but I appreciate the opportunity to get everyone's questions here, and we thank you all for being here and providing these questions.
Great. Thank you, Cord. All right. And with that, I think we can close out. Thank you all so much for joining us. Again, please join that Gov Delivery listserv if you are not on there, and watch for that around June 16th date of publishing that Q&A. And any further questions can be emailed to Bethany Moreland.